Well, hello everyone. I'm Christopher Herring. I'm the Executive Director of Global Chamber, San Antonio, Austin, and Houston, and holding down the fort for the steering group with Global Chamber Texas. Today, we are celebrating, and we're off today officially, right? This is a federal holiday in the United States of America. We are celebrating the Juneteenth holiday. And we're going to talk more about what Juneteenth is. But I did want you to know that this is a very significant day uh, in Black American history, African American history, however you want to call it. This was the day in which, in the state of Texas, the slaves learned that we indeed had freedom. That came through the Emancipation Proclamation that was signed by President Lincoln. But Texas was a little slow with adopting the law of the land. And Colonel Charles Granger in the city of Galveston, Texas, delivered the news that, in fact, the enslaved population was free. And so that's why we have this remembrance, this celebration about what Juneteenth is. I'm in the state of Texas. I'm born and raised in upstate New York, and I have very mixed emotions. Uh, Not about the New York Knicks winning the NBA championship, but being that I'm in a state that has to bear the nation's acknowledgement that this was the last state that actually stood down slavery. And with that being said, there's so much more that I can say. Uh, but today I will shape this as the day to talk about the opportunities that we celebrate. Because out of tragedy, there's triumph. And with that being said, there's opportunities. And the opportunities that we strive for may be a little different. Each person in this room has a different opportunity that you're searching for. But prayerfully, we can have the opportunity that helps to build each other up, move our businesses, ourselves as individuals forward, and that will be the best presentation of who God made us to be. So, with that, I'm so glad to be here today. And I'm so glad to have this time to spend with uh, friends in the room that I see that are gathered. And we also have some announcements. And so we're just blessed. I'm blessed. Um, and if you know me and my background, I served in the United States Air Force for 20 years. I retired at Randolph Air Force Base uh, in Universal City, right next to San Antonio, Texas, and raised a family right here. And I've been able to be a part of Military City, USA, one of the greatest cities in all of the world. And as I have enjoyed being a part of this city, I ran for mayor last year. And while I didn't win the race, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the landscape of San Antonio, the landscape of Texas, and it really cemented me even more so into doing the work of trying to ending generational poverty in the sixth, seventh largest city in the United States of America. And that when you look at the difference of those who have and those who have not, we should all be moved to see how we can make a difference. The economy right now is good for some, it's bad for others. We see homelessness that's on the rise in many parts of our city. Just like as I travel across the United States, I see homelessness that's rising in many states. And so I would just hope that there's people like you at Global Chamber that have a heart to serve and and to give your very best. So again, thank you for joining us today. Um, wow, I'm gonna start off by saying I see one of my uh, Global Chamber board members up in Austin, Ms. Crensell. She also is an author of this book here. Can y'all see it? Under My Skin. She was an Amazon bestseller, and I hope to hear from her later into this. If she's already unmuted, she can jump in anytime. But I'm glad that she's here. She had a great book that talked about her uh, life in rock and roll. She was like one of the premier women that served in the PR capacity with one of my favorite all-time groups called Kiss. And so she documents and tells her story about how she was able to not only survive, but thrive. So thank you for being on today. And then I have another person who I want to share that, let me see, Dr. Keely Petty. Look, Dr. Keely Petty is truly one of those individuals who I would call a dope American. She is very accomplished in all things spiritual and all things mental. And so today she's going to talk to us about our uh, our mental well-being, our business drive. She's going to talk to us about so many different things that I just want you to know that you should be taking some notes because she's going to drop some science on you, and you're going to need to be able to record it. So just know, Dr. Petty is all that, and I can't wait to uh, also come back and say that she is a bestseller as well, because her work is really tremendous. I've actually benefited as a person who sat in on many of her classes as she has done some things online and has really inspired me to be my very best as well. So, with that being said, I'm going to pivot. Dr. Petty, how are you today?
I am so happy to be here with my Global Chamber family. Christopher Herring, thank you for your kind words and for always doing one of the things that God says that He does for us, and that's being a lifter of individuals and ensuring that we all reach the elevation and the level that God has called us to be through the work of the Global Chamber. You are stellar, you are dynamic, you are a visionary, and I am always honored to walk hand in hand with you to ensure that global wellness is a part of this platform.
Right?
I want to say to everyone, one of my uh, best best persons who I learned from is Dr. Tony Evans.
Mm,
And what Dr. Tony Evans, he teaches this thing on the ripple effect. And this is what he says that I believe, I know for sure is important for today's dialogue. He says the spiritual principle that our internal choices, write that down, our character and leadership inevitably flow outward to impact our family, to impact our community, and to impact future generations. Unquote. I find that as we are celebrating a federal holiday, Juneteenth, uh, the significance of what happened in Galveston, Texas, 2 years after our people being free. There's this word that we hear all the time, and it's intergenerational historical trauma. And unfortunately, we have not moved away from that. When we talk about intergenerational historical trauma, and the need for communities of color to move into wellness is going to require a deep seated impact of historical events, such as we have seen through slavery, systemic racism, all of the changes that are going on currently with the DEI. I argue that we must continue to address intergenerational trauma by moving beyond silence and stigma, which means we cannot be quiet, which means we have to push beyond the shame and the silence that continues to hold our communities hostage. Now, let me say this: we've accomplished great things. We've had elevation of a African American president, folks in Congress, folks leading businesses, even PF Chang's now is
Yeah.
led by an African American who have broken through barriers. But it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of effort, and most of all, for persons of color, it takes a lot of faith. So the true wellness begins by creating safe, I believe, culturally responsive spaces such as this, where individuals and literally people from all walks of life can move progressively, sharing our experiences rather than adhering to traditional mantras that always encourage keeping the struggle hidden. Thus, the erasure of those who have made great military feats in our military. So I just believe that recognizing individuals, particularly again us, since we are celebrating today, the Juneteenth. Listen, it's not just African Americans celebrating. I believe it is a global celebration that
Right.
whom the Son has set free, we are free
Indeed.
indeed,
Yeah.
meaning we have deeds and contributions culturally, locally, statewide, nationally, and even globally. So if our deeds are restricted, I believe the global world is restricted. And
Yeah.
one of the places that we have been struck, unfortunately, is in what I call the mind space. I grew up in a time when the United Negro College Fund had an incredible mantra, and the mantra was, quote, a mind is a terrible thing to waste, unquote. So I believe, as I am on a mission to help humanity hold on to hope until healing happens, I believe and I know for sure I am one of those who will see the transformational change in my lifetime, and I will definitely leave a mark that won't be erased for future generations.
Your comments are so timely. Today, I find it a little bit difficult to talk about Juneteenth. Um, it wasn't a topic that, I was looking forward to addressing throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the shoulders on who I stand. And when I think about um, basic rights in this country that my military service should have spoken for, deploying into Iraq, being in crash landings uh, on military missions, doing humanitarian missions where I was asked to go. But yet, I see that the vote and the power of the vote has been challenged and continues to be challenged. And whether we're Republican or whether we're Democrat or whether we're independent, one of the most sacred things in which we have is the ability to vote. And that voting represents opportunity, and that opportunity should never, never be extinguished. because once we start to extinguish opportunities for people, um, then what are we doing? And that's not just from my perspective. That's I speak for young people who feel lost. I speak for those who don't necessarily know where their place is right now. Um, and so you know me, I'm more upbeat when it comes to the opportunities to share about the things that I'm really, thoughtful about. But on this day, while it's a day off, I still think about the fact that I have people in my family that I could refer to that experienced the worst treatment ever, and that for some to say that, you haven't experienced anything associated to what your parents went through is ridiculous. And I'm standing here today uh, because of the resilience of generations that was able to be treated as second, third, fourth, and not even as a person. And yet, uh, I've been blessed to be able to be a part of this global chamber opportunity. And I don't know, in your professional work, Dr. Petty, do you find that you have individuals like myself who have been very well accomplished, but yet still dismayed by how we may be feeling?
Absolutely. And again, I love what I refer to as the ripple effect. You and others are simply a ripple in the tsunami of global healing. We call it resilience. We call it pushing through. We call it surviving. We call it thriving. And we have thrived. Many of us have thrived as a people. And I'm a firm believer that in every community, every group of people, particularly us, if we are not well, the world is not well. The idea that we would be erased our history, what really happened to us being erased, the idea that we are firing and not hiring and still dealing with what I call the modern day lynchings. We're not hanging from trees anymore, but we're being cut off. Our gifts, our talents, our contributions to making the world a beautiful place is still being cut off. We're still watching police officers, that spirit that even brought about police officers, the slave watch is still happening in many Black and Brown communities. So we are still dealing with intergenerational trauma. We don't want to be dealing with it, but every day we wake up, and if you watch them, there's something going on that is attacking our gifts, our ability, and the audacity to keep going. We are constantly being berated in that space. And I know that every human being is created in the image and likeness of God. And to try to remove the likeness of people of color is a disservice to humanity. I found out doing some research in my family because I like that. On my mother's side, there is Andrew Jackson LaFall.
Uh-huh. Well, who
My
is he?
mother's maiden name was LaFall.
The fall.
We know Andrew Jackson. We know what his mentality was towards persons of color. So, what that let me know, and I'm going to contact Henry Louis Gates because I want him to help me find out am I related to Andrew Jackson in some capacity on my mother's side?
Oh,
Not so that I can raise hell, but so that I can raise heaven and open up opportunity to discuss what that means for me, what it means for my children, and what it means to be connected to a man of his caliber who was not favorable toward us as a people of color. And I even
well,
found a picture, Christopher, of my family member, him and his wife, and I posted it on my social media, Andrew Jackson LaFall.
well, let me just share with you. Um, our history is always going to trace back to those who enslaved us.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Ancestry first came out, I found that when I was going through the census, that I could no longer go past,
A
say,
certain.
a
Mm-hmm.
certain year, right? It was around 18, say 1865 in that area, since and this is maybe an education for y'all who don't know, and that take your ancestry for granted because you're on there and you're able to trace back to 1400s and 13. Look,
Mm-hmm.
for us, it stops at like 1860, 1860s, where some slaves were on they were listed as being property. So you would find the names of slaves within the wills because they were being transferred from the slave owner to his family. And that was where you first saw the evidence of names. But as we got closer into the 1900s, you'll start to see that African Americans started to appear on the census. And then when they appeared on the census, their names were spelled wrong. A lot of them, the names were just butchered. So you would find that there was like Heron, Herrin versus my name Herring. You would find Herring, HA. So it all depended upon the literacy of the person doing the census. And most of the
Mm-hmm.
times there weren't people who could write or to the levels that we can today. But I traced back after I ran out of being able to populate my ancestry level with people who I knew were my relatives. I populated them with the slave owners' names, and I
Wow.
and I connected. And this is what was
Mm-hmm.
the discovery. So Ancestry.com has this thing called through line,
Mm-hmm.
and for every slave owner that I had connected and for every person who said, "Why are you connecting with us in this way?" Um, Once the genetics, the DNA became a real thing within Ancestry, the scoreboard has started to light up. And I started to see the connections of the people who I had earmarked only because I had earmarked their great grandfathers. And they were questioning why was I linking to their great grandfather. I said, well, if slavery was true, and it was, we saw
Mm-hmm.
that slave owners did have sex with slaves and did
Mm-hmm.
have families. And so I ran across a woman in Austin, Texas, uh, who is my who is my twin. She's a white female, and she's a herring. And it wasn't something that was welcome. She did not really want to learn about that part of the history of the Herring family. But going back to the Civil War, the Herring family were attorneys that were on the Confederate side that fought hard to keep slavery intact. And and we were also part of the American Revolutionary War. So we claim that as well. And it's an amazing journey being Black, African American, and knowing that when it gets to the simple things of who are you, that it may not necessarily be the same conversation that I can have with you that I have maybe with Terry Levine or Elise or someone else because it's different. And some of the conflicting nature of being who we are, because nothing really is is as simple as it should be.
Yeah, the fact that I am related to, again, on my mother's side, to Andrew Jackson, who was the president of the United States from 1829 to 1837. He owned 300 slaves.
Mhm.
So I know for sure that one of those 300 slaves is what gives me kinship, not just DNA relation, but true relationship to him. He owned 300 slaves. He participated in the slave trade joyfully. He was a yes and amen for slavery.
He
So
said
I,
joyfully.
yeah, I'm thinking, wow, which one of my relatives on my mother's side did this happen to and happen for? He was also brutal. He was brutal with the slaves that he owned. He wasn't kind. So I have an insatiable appetite to figure out and find out the details of that, because I truly know that what Mother Teresa said is true for all of us. And what she said was, quote, if we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to one another,
Uh,
unquote. And that's powerful. We're trying to make peace and birth peace and give peace, but for us as African American, we have to go and find the pieces that will draw us to a space of peace. And this is why, for me, mental wellness is huge in the process of that. And again, it's not a gift that I have, it is a calling.
mm.
King David had a gift to be a musician, but his calling was kingship. My
So,
is to teach and train, but my calling is to help awaken and arouse a hunger and a thirst for mental well-being among persons of color, because we've grown up with this mantra, and I believe this came from slave times. What goes on in the house stays in the house. So we learn to be silent. We learn to go get the switch to be
mm.
dealt with. We learned that that was not a part of what should have been, but that's how the wind of that intergenerational trauma and that historical trauma still exists this very day.
So, Dr. Petty, I want you to tell us about this amazing new book, The Mental Wellness Faith Collective. What will the reader get after opening up this book?
Well, the book will help an individual understand that, number one, it's going to take a collective effort. It's going to take compassion, and it's going to take a place of empathy within the individual that picks up the book to read it. Originally, it was soul care, helping people understand what the biblical role of health and healing is and how we can read the scripture. Because I got to say this, I'm a woman of God. I love the Lord. I love the Bible. I love teaching the Bible, but my calling now is to integrate those faith based principles with mental wellness, so that there's no gap and there's no division, but there's a true marriage and a beautiful dance between the two that will allow people not to be afraid of asking the question, not be afraid of engaging in learning and gaining wisdom and knowledge. The book will also have some details on my own history of trauma, and how I moved into a place of healing, which gives me the authority to speak as a subject matter expert on trauma, on mental health, on psychosis, on cognitive issues,
Yeah.
and just bring people to a place to say, wow, if she went through that, and that happened for her, that means I now have access to healing. And if I heal, I can promote self healing communities everywhere my feet are planted.
But, it's great is the fact that we were able to have and share this type of information. I want to talk about Global Chamber because I primarily, and I believe I met you when I was the president of the Alamo City Black Chamber of Commerce in San
Yes.
Antonio,
Mm-hmm.
and when I served at the Texas level, I was the chairman for the Texas Association for African American Chambers of Commerce. Um, I never saw Global Chamber or any type of international chamber as being something that I would fall into. But I learned something, and this goes to each of you in the room. Uh, Part of my journey is that my strength is helping to build and forge relationships with people. And the highest level of the calling is an international calling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't understand the difference really between global and international until my friend, the late Jorge Canavati, who was our board chair, said, Chris, San Antonio doesn't really have as many global things as, we throw this word global around. That was one of his pet peeves. Everyone was using this term global. And he says to be global is a geography. You have to be somewhere. Like the geography of global is being from Paris, France, or it's being in London. It's being. He said the closest thing that we have to being global is the San Antonio Spurs organization, meaning you'll see people from around the world wearing the Spurs jerseys, and that is truly a global footprint. The next would be Global Chamber because of the work that our founder Doug Brunke has done it in the remarkable way that he's done it. He used the one word called opportunity, and he's planted it within so many of us so that we are global ambassadors who specialize in international relationships. And that's what brings me more hope than dwelling on the things in which I can't change, but just knowing that we do have a very warm community that shows up, that's very supportive, and that reeks leadership. I mean, this is a leadership group. And I believe that's the type of change agents in which we need to have more of in order to move past whatever's holding us back and push us into an environment that helps to push us forward. And I just thought about that this morning.
I agree with that. And I think when we talk about transformation, we hear a lot of language around transformation. It's formative. We use these words, but when I think about the work that the Global Chamber is doing, and when I think about the partnering of the wellness work that I do, thus, I'm thinking, wow, global wellness, the global wellness chamber, the global wellness chamber worldwide, because there's not a group of people, there's not an ethnic group who does not want to walk into wellness. So when I think about transformation on a global level, San Antonio is global because we have people from all walks of life and from all over the world, businesses, communities from all over the world. So it's amalgamation of different types of people, and that's what makes us global. When we talk about transformation, it is the head knowledge that we get that then begins to move in our hearts
Hmm.
and opens up an opportunity for us to be compassionate to uh, someone who may be outside of my race. And once that happens, then we have global action in place. We have movement, we have traction, we have ideas, we create coalitions, we create meeting and healing hubs where people can actually come together from a global perspective, because pain is pain, tears are tears, right? We all
Yes.
experience the same thing from a human perspective. So, this lie that because I'm Black, I'm less, if you're white, you're right, those things have to be dismantled. And we have to truly know that we are better together.
So, in your work, you highlighted that pastors was a target group at some point that you
Mm-hmm.
recognized. And one of my observations as the past president of the Alamo City Black Chamber was the fact that in San Antonio we had more Black churches than we had Black businesses. I mean, we had probably over 100 churches to that I could remember. And so nonprofits in some way, shape, or form have become the viable business passion for many within our community. How has your work and your revelation that there were people that were carrying the burdens of others for too long, and how that wasn't necessarily the best for them? How did you come to that discovery?
When we think about the church, and again, it is Juneteenth, and we're not going to be quiet about that. We know that the African Methodist Episcopalian Church was one of the first churches that arose from the African American space. Churches for us as Black people were healing hubs, places we could come cry, places we could come sing, places we could come hold each other and encourage one another. Uh, that is what caused the church to help us as African American people. It was one of the safe spaces that we didn't have a sign that said whites only. We could actually come together because slave owners didn't even want Black women's hair to be shown. This is why you saw the scarves and the wraps. They didn't even, the fruit that was being plucked from the trees, they didn't even want Black people partaking in that. Thus, they came up with a horrible face mask to keep that from happening. So, the church for the African American community has been a place of civic duty and a movement of justice, so that we move into healing, we fight for healing, we don't forget that that God has strengthened us, but with God strengthening us, we have always wanted to see that traction as it is in heaven on earth. We want to see that happen within our communities. So the church isn't going anywhere, as Kirk Franklin so said in his song. But my work is to help churches, simply because the first place an individual goes to who is experiencing a mental health dilemma or crisis, they go to their pastor. Yet
Mhm.
70% of pastors, Black, white, brown, blue, feel ill equipped to do any other thing to say, well, let me pray for you, go and be well. That is not right. That is unhealthy, particularly in the Black church, because again, we have more mental anguish because of our historical trauma, because of our intergenerational trauma, because we don't trust going to necessarily Caucasian people for medical help. Why? Because we've been experimented on. Even here recently in the 90s, Black children who were in orphanages, that's not the right word because we don't have orphanage, but they were in foster care, their bodies were used for AIDS testing, new drugs. So we don't trust that. We don't trust that if I go because you think I that Black people can endure pain more. Those kind of lies have to be dismantled if we are truly going to help individuals move into wholeness and healing. And people don't
Yeah,
want us to talk about it. You know, that's the
yeah,
ugly part
yeah.
of America, but it's the true part of America. And the glory is that we have thrived. We have shown resilience, I believe, greater than any other race of people on the face of the earth.
I find that even within this space of being in a global space,
Mm-hmm.
that there's a journey that is still left for me to communicate and others to communicate because uh, anything that is different than what people know,
Mm-hmm.
they have some form of anxiety about. For me, when I think about some of the components of business and being in business and being Black, it's no different than if I was in business and being white, except there are there are various rejections in which we've experienced. One of the greatest issues for Black business owners is access to capital. Its the ability of access to capital.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, certain communities across America experienced redlining.
Redlining. Mm-hmm.
And redlining basically is just what it is. It's putting a red line around a community and then offering them
Nothing.
nothing or the worst financial agreements to products in which other people would be paying, literally nothing for. And so you have a history of actions that have come through the banking systems, that have come through the real estate systems, through systems, and to develop the confidence when people want to know more about what do we do. Um, uh, I sometimes have to break it down to the fact that on an international and a global scale, we don't have the same constraints as maybe a local municipality might have
Mm-hmm.
because we're really able to focus on the opportunities of doing business together and then working out those relationships and making things happen, which is really ideally where we all want to be at every level of our lives, meaning my results that I have with Global Chamber should be the same results that I should have with my local chamber. But it's
Mm-hmm.
not. And that's the truth. And as I go across the country and I've seen various entrepreneurs in various spaces, um, the ability to be able to do business, have transactions that aren't micromanaged, to be able to freely to move around the country and to do it with the global chamber is is such a difference. It's such a difference than when I was in the parochial bubble of the Black Chamber, where we were talking about the same problems that still to this day haunt the very businesses that continue to have the advocacy to get what they need to be able to eat, to be able to put food on their tables, to be able to get contracts, and as we've seen, and I've commented about the vote, but contracting opportunities across the board has also dried up for Black businesses. So if we're going to have a truthful Juneteenth conversation, um, this is what it looks like. Um,
And I also want to add to that because I've done a lot of work in the nonprofit sector. One of the things that's happening right now, for example, there's a whole language change within the space of nonprofit work if it looks like the funding is geared for distressed communities. if it looks like it's geared for African American work. So, for example, all of the HIV funding, all of the AIDS funding has been scrapped off of the table. We know that African American men, right now, Houston, Texas, has the largest population of African American people who have succumbed to HIV and AIDS. Now they have no help at the federal level, which is so, so harsh of a thing to do among a population of people. I know that when we look at the 8 dimensions of wellness that the Substance Abuse Mental Health Administration, which is a federal organization, one of those spaces in being dimensionally well is the financial and occupational state, which you just mentioned. Being able to say that Black businesses can thrive, that Black businesses have the propensity and the audacity to do what any other individual does, but we are still being cut out of the picture. We are still not being able to go to a bank and say that, hey, I need funding for this opportunity,
Right.
because there is a mistrust in financial places and how we will handle money. There has been language that has said generational welfare queens. When we look at Black women who want to move into business, that started under the Reagan era, and that thing is still permeating. So it is truly up to us. It is up to us to be mindful that we do have a responsibility to this generation and the next generation, that we can see the thermometer of that change. I still believe it can change. I believe it's going to be an aggressive fight, but I still believe that it can change. And the reason the HIV issue is huge for me, I have been on the board of Beat AIDS here in San Antonio, and I did that because my brother died from AIDS. I remember back in the early 80s going to the doctor with him, and the doctor said, listen, you have this new disease. This was in 82. I was 12. But I remember them tell, and we just left out of there in shock. Even then, there was no help and no support for African Americans who had succumbed to that. So what did we have to do? We had to create our own space so that we could have discussions and look at medical facilities and medical resources and support that would help us heal. Again, when we talk about healing, we do heal better together collectively. As people, we heal better together. So our work, Juneteenth, thank God that we can celebrate that and that everybody gets a federal holiday for that. But I hope that in my lifetime to continue to make a difference in the space that I'm in, because it's ongoing. It's just ongoing. We have conversations about reparations and, how Asians got funds for the dilemmas that they have gone through. We're still waiting on apologies. We're still waiting on so many doors that should be open for us that are still closed. So
Mhm.
being a woman of faith, the one thing that I do know that I can do is continue to pray that God will break this off of us as a people, as he did with the people who were under Pharaoh. We are still under a Pharaoh, just a different name and a different generation. And I can't wait to see heaven help us in this space.
Well, thank you, Dr. Petty. Appreciate you so much. And just so you know, on today's news on CNN, in Evanston, Illinois, they have been paying reparations to Black residents. Um,
Okay, look at
Mayor,
that.
the mayor, Daniel Biss, Biss, look it up, went on this morning talking about why this has worked out tremendously for his community, how it's in fact
An
enabled
economic blessing.
it enabled some of his community to do different things like having business opportunities that they didn't
Home
have.
ownership. Yeah.
So check it out. And for all of you who also came onto the meetup today, different programming. Today is Juneteenth, and wanted to make sure that we acknowledged,
Yeah.
um, a topic in which maybe you know a lot about, maybe you know nothing of.
Hmm.
But it's a very sensitive holiday. It's still a new holiday for me, but we're still learning. And what I appreciate about each of you is the fact that you all have open hearts, open minds to want to have collaboration. And that's what I've been blessed with. The fact that I have a village that will listen and that will contribute and that will try to encourage. And
I love the collaborative conversations, and that's what the Global Chamber gives each of us an opportunity to do collaboratively come and conversate about painful things, things that we need to pivot away from, things we need to move into. And then the idea that we all still have a hope and a future because we're
right.
still here.
Right. And we are a global village. We are and that's what again, I think that when Doug Brunke came up with this ideal of having a chamber that could work and do business without boundaries, without borders, without having people to say, yes, you can talk to that person and no, you can't talk to that person. The most brilliant ideal ever, because what it's given us is opportunity. Have a great Juneteenth. And truly, may you be blessed in this day. All right. Thank you again.
Bye, everybody.
Mila, that's a wrap.